The September 4th, 2024 City Council meeting back in session. Do we have anything to report from the city attorney? Oh, there he is. Sorry, I didn't see you sitting there.
Item number 1, no reportable action. Item number 2, council was advised no reportable action. Item number 3, there was, item number 3 and 4, there was no reportable action. The city attorney was given direction.
Thank you, sir. We'll now have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mayor Pro Tem Newton. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And my former classmate, Renee Parrish, will lead the invocation.
Join me in prayer for what's happening in Georgia now, the residents of Georgia. So, Lord, we thank you, God, that we can come before you. Lord, with our needs, with our sorrows, with our concerns, Father. And Father, that your word assures us in Psalm 34 that you are close to the brokenhearted, Father, and that you, Lord Jesus, save those who are questions. And Father, we lift up, God, our brothers and sisters, Lord, in Winder, Georgia, Lord, this shooting at Appalachian High School, Father. We ask, oh God, that you would be with and comfort those who are grieving, Father, to, Lord, bring healing and restoration for those who are wounded, Father. To, Lord, just embrace those, Father, Lord, in that community and that high school, Lord, that are, Lord, traumatized by the events of today. We don't understand the depth of evil, Father, but Lord, we surrender that, Lord, not understanding to you. And Lord, we pray in unison, Lord, for you to uplift them, to strengthen them, and to give them a peace that passes all understanding. And Lord, in saying so and doing so, Father, we ask, oh God, that you would, Lord, bless, God, and be with and protect our community and our residents, and give wisdom, Lord, to this council, Lord, and all of the decisions, Lord, that are set before them. God, the direction, Lord, God, to see our community, Lord, to prosper, Lord, and to live in safety and to live in peace. And we thank you for this opportunity. In Christ's name, amen.
Thank you, Renee.
Just a slight revision to my announcement on the Lot D matter. There was a contingent approval to file litigation. That was the initiation of litigation, item 3.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to City Council reports on regional boards. We'll begin with Robin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing to report at this time.
Nothing to report. My last board meeting was called off due to lack of a quorum.
Councilman Hanna?
I attended the bridge dedication ribbon cuttings. Thank you.
He dragged me along. So I also attended the Berwyn-Hanna Bridge dedication. It was a good turnout. Wanted to compliment staff on all the work they did. They put together just a great program. The following day, Councilmember Grunmeyer and myself met with as the subcommittee, we met with Lisette and a rep from, well, it was basically the UCR Waste to Hydrogen subcommittee meeting. And we're going to be following up with another meeting with the consultant and bring Public Works into this. So Kevin, it was a good first meeting, and it's a pretty interesting concept and a lot to learn on it. So that's all I have right now. Thank you.
I have nothing really to report except that the 20th anniversary celebration at the Hidden Valley Nature Center will be 9:30, October 11th. And I hope as many of us can attend as possible. I know it's kind of a difficult time, but should be a good day. And that's all I have. All right, moving on to public comments. Do we have any public comments at this time?
This is the time when persons wishing to address the presiding governmental body regarding the consent calendar or matters not on the agenda may be heard. Please limit comments to 3 minutes or less. The governmental body shall not discuss or act relative to any general public comment. And our first speaker is Lamondo Greer.
Oh, sorry.
No
Hi,
worries.
how are you? Welcome.
Hello, how you guys doing? This is my first time to your City Hall.
That's all
Mayor.
right. We're friendly.
First time. So hello, Mayor, City Council, and City staff. My name is Lamondo Greer. I'm the Associate Executive of Healthy Living for the Corona-Norco Family YMCA. And so today, I'd like to give you guys an update about our swim program. And thank you all for your partnership as well. From June through August, we serve over 108 swim participants through our First Five program. This was located at our Arboretum Community Center, located in Corona. Of the 108 participants, 40 of the families were from Norco, or Norco residents.
40?
40 of them out of 108. Our goal at the Corona-Norco Family YMCA is to teach children how to be safe around water and educate families and the importance of water safety. We also offer other swim programs, which include for teens and adults, as well as safety around the water programs. Due to the success of our summer program, we're excited to announce that we have a partnership with Corona High School, expanding our other swim programs. This will be starting this month in September. Lessons will be available for ages 4 to 18-year-olds and begin Saturday, September 14th from 9:40 to 12:50 p.m. with no cost. So I also have a flyer too if you guys are interested. And I'm gonna leave some outside on the table as well.
Perfect.
So tell your family, friends, I'd love to see you guys at the pool, encourage water safety. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you very much. Can you do me a favor and PDF that and send it to us? Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jeff Cahan.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, residents. I was informed that there were a few complaints about some music that I played during the Norco Labor Day parade. During the pre-parade entertainment and the parade itself, I played close to 100 full or partial songs. Apparently, there are 3 that are being considered offensive and have received complaints. The first track is from a 54-time Oscar-nominated composer from a movie franchise that's grossed over $10 billion worldwide. The second track is from a world-renowned band that had the American Billboard chart #1 song in 1980 for 3 years. The last track is from a 1960s British television series instrumental theme song that ran for 6 seasons and continues to be in syndication. There is nothing offensive about any of those songs. They are neither vulgar nor profane in any way, and 2 of the 3 songs don't even have lyrics. As a matter of fact, the TV theme song in question has been played by me on previous occasions in relation to city council members at various events in the past, and I have never received a single complaint before. Why now? So I want to nip this in the bud and clear this up. I want to make it very, very clear that the musical selections were mine and mine alone. The Norco Fair is not run by the city, so the city should have no jurisdiction or direct involvement and therefore no responsibility. Anyone complaining to the city is misguided. They can leave the city out of it. The Norco Fair is run by a volunteer committee, and that committee, including the president, and the parade chairpersons and any other fair committee volunteers are in no way responsible for the music that I selected. I am solely responsible for my decisions and my selections. I was acting alone as an individual and as a volunteer and in no other capacity. Please leave the committee out of it. It is incorrect to cast blame on any member other than myself. If anyone were to be offended, it would be the entire Norco Fair Committee for my bringing anything political, however small and inconsequential, to the overall event. Any complaints about the parade may reflect poorly on the Fair Committee as a whole, and I apologize to them and all of the associated volunteers if I have tainted their hard work and countless hours of precious time and sweat in any way. Any complaints should be directed to me and me alone. I am solely responsible for my own actions and decisions. To guarantee this never happens again in the future, I have notified the Norco Fair president, and I will publicly state here and now that I am resigning my position from the Norco Fair Parade Committee, and I will never again announce the Norco Fair Labor Day Parade. And I hope that the Fair Committee will accept my apology.
The next speaker is Greg Bowen.
Hi, Greg.
Thank you, Council. Thank you, Mayor. I want to come out and thank everybody for showing up. I mean, John's here, and Amanda, you guys did awesome. Both weekends, you guys were phenomenal. Richard was just outstanding, and all your staff. I just want to come up here because the only time you guys hear anything is bad, and I want to make sure you guys hear the good too. So thank you for all your help, and we really appreciate everybody that came out. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Our next speaker is Bonnie Slager.
Hi, Bonnie.
Good evening, everybody. Yes, I too would like to thank city staff for the support for the rodeo and the fair. I think they were both really outstanding events. My other reason for being up here tonight is to remind everybody that we have an election coming up, and there are 2 candidates nights. I believe there's one that the chamber is putting on a week from tomorrow night. And then Rural and Norco Horsemen's Association have partnered on a second one, and ours is on the 19th at, I still call it Nellie Weaver Hall. I know you guys renamed it the hall, but it's always going to be Nellie Weaver Hall to me at 6:30. So I hope that everybody here and everybody at home listening will put that on their calendar and show up for that event. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Our next speaker is Carol Hubble. Yeah, they'll pass them through. Just to pass those through.
Hello, Ms. Hubble. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Welcome.
I'm excited to see the road open, but there was only one concern that I was more concerned about: pedestrians on a 6-lane highway that's going 50 miles an hour. I know that where you have set up for the bridge is for the horse, that portion of it, but when you get past that and you go down, that is just sidewalk. It drops literally on the right side is a wrought iron fence. Anybody that, and there's no bike lanes, so everybody has to use that one sidewalk, and you're gonna see there's electrical poles in that and those sidewalks, so nobody can get by. If you happen to be riding your bike or walking your dog and a baby, you have to hit into the street, or there is no, where River was done, where you had the carpool at least, and it was fenced in, you know, you had safety, but you have, you know, if this was an industrial area, it would be fine, but this is 2 parks. We have all these people coming in from all over to play soccer. If they want to take a nice walk up to Starbucks, you know, not get in their car, you know, you've got a bunch of kids playing soccer, you know, 5 kids with you. That sidewalk is not adequate. And my main concern is the families and the children and the people that come here to Norco. And we have the park on the other side. It's wonderful, but we need to tweak it a little bit more where we have the people that come here that are safe. And we don't have any other choice because that's Eastvale and here. The only way we can get across the river is off of River Road and then Harupa Valley. So if you want to ride your bicycle or anything to get over here, I mean, to get anywhere past the freeway, there's more room on the freeway than there is on our road passing for pedestrian. So that's my main concern, is the safety of the people that come here to visit that's on this. And as you see, there's the light switch and the horses are going to go down. They have a certain way. But what about the people and the children, the ladies that bring their strollers or buggies, or they have things with them, the wheel things they have? You guys just put a new hotel up there. You know, they're not going to drive and they can just like take a great walk down the street. It's not that far. So that is my main concern, is to somehow get that fixed, because you're doing both lanes. Everybody has to go up and down that little tiny spot. Bicycles, scooters, anything. You don't have a bike lane. You have a 6-lane highway. So anyway, my concern is the families, and that's on that. And I just don't think when they were building it that all of a sudden they just said, oh, we have to connect it to a sidewalk. And I go, ooh, a little bit more than that. Anyway, thank you. That's all. My thoughts are for the safety of.
Thank you for bringing this to our attention.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you again.
Berwin, you screwed it up, buddy. I'm teasing. It's all right. You know, he'll be out there with his blower and broom. So just as a point of, we normally can't, I'm not going to discuss it, but Chad, how, that is bizarre that it's in the, how, maybe you can find out why that pole is there and why, yeah. Oh, here's, just, not tonight, but maybe, just look into it maybe and just find out why the entire, I mean, it's kind of strange actually. And then I'd also like to know where we are with what's left to be completed. Yeah. All right, next one. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Hubble.
There's no further public comment, Mayor.
Closing public comments. Moving on to consent item. Are there any items need to be pulled? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve all items?
Move to approve.
Do I hear a second?
Please vote. Catherine, yours is still showing. I don't know why it's doing that. Are you yes or no?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
Moving on to legislative matters, 5A. Colin. First, Colin, you'll answer questions. Let's move on to 5A, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Norco, California, amending Title IX of the Norco Municipal Code, NMC, Chapter 9.20, Fireworks, Section 9.20.040, Administrative Citation Issuance to increase the fine amounts for illegal use of fireworks, Code Amendment 2024-10. Colin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the fireworks ordinance the council approved as a first read. It was brought forward for a second read without change.
All right. So, council have any questions or concerns? Any public comment? Nope. Berwin? Greg?
Motion to approve the second reading.
We have to have public comments. Okay.
No public comments, Mayor.
Okay. You have a motion, Greg? Motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Please vote.
Yes.
Thanks, Catherine. Motion passes unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to 6A, approval of a 3-year contract for professional public works inspection services. Chad?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a continuation of the item from our discussion at the last council meeting where the council had asked to get some additional information, which I believe was provided to council in closed session. So this item on itself is to continue a contract with with Z&K to provide professional inspection services. It's an at-will on-call services contract, so if we decide to reduce that level of service at any time we can, or we have to expand it, we can based off the level of work. So we're just looking to get a contract in place because we, unfortunately, as I indicated last meeting, I neglected an oversight on my part to this contract expired and needed to renew it. So we're already 2 months in, and we just need to get a contract in place to ensure we can pay the invoices that are already coming.
Any questions of Chad, council? Any public comments?
First public comment is Lacey Matson.
That's me.
Lacey Matson.
Oh, that's me.
Good evening, Mayor and council
Is there
members.
something we need to know about you, Greg?
He's just... Thank you.
Hi, Lacey.
Hi. Good evening, guys. Thank you for listening to us again. I just wanted to bring to your attention, according to the Michael Myers-Brown Act, the MMBA is what we use to govern how we negotiate with each other. Subcontracting falls under the scope of bargaining. For the city to subcontract a union-held position, they must first give written notice to the union. And then they should be able to sit, meet, and bargain in good faith, meet and confer, and talk about the decision about it. None of this has happened. No written notice was ever given to the union now or prior to when you guys first started subcontracting. Nothing was ever given. And like I said last time, the union is new. They're learning what rights they have and what they don't have. And literally 2 weeks ago is when they found out, wait a second, we were told that job's in your MOU description. That is a union job. You guys should have been brought in. You guys should have been able to talk about it. They should not have been able to just subcontract it out. And that's why we brought it to your guys' attention. And as you know, because it is considered a scope of bargaining, it could be considered an unfair labor practice charge again, if you guys would not want to sit down and talk about this. As you know, the union is wanting to have this position held in the city. To us, we see a benefit for the city. The city saves money, and then with having the employees do the inspection, it gives the city more quality control over the inspectors and what's being expected and how things are being inspected. It was mentioned at the last council meeting that the city could not find a qualified person, possibly due to the lower pay scale, and that is said of just one position held, that the city would need at least 2 positions to handle the workload. I find it odd that the city can afford to raise the pay scale to attract a qualified person, but the city will pay double to a subcontractor for the position. If the city has a budget of $550,000 annually, they could use that to hire 2 to 3 employees that could fill the position in-house. I also find it odd that the city would say that they did not have any qualified applicants when in fact the city did. However, they were not given an interview, nor a written or oral reason why they were not given the opportunity to interview, nor were they given a thank you letter for applying. Last meeting, it was also mentioned that the subcontractors were better suited because of their knowledge and expertise. If that were true, why did the city of Norco have to provide parts to a contractor to finish a job because a subcontracted inspector failed to make sure the contractor had the correct parts before starting the job? When a contractor is supposed to start a job, they're supposed to make sure they have all their parts, so when you're shutting down a water system, it can be turned on without running for parts. Why was an employee asked to walk a whole job site to comprise a list of violations when they reported a violation they found on another site? Why was an employee asked to help explain to the inspector the whys, how, and the hows of inspecting a job for the city? I know some of these examples are from earlier projects, and the subcontracted inspectors are doing better. The point is, why did the city pay more for subcontractors to come in and still have to be essentially trained by a city employee on what is expected of them? The city could have saved time and money hiring within. Now that the city has no contract with an outside company to do its inspection, it is time for you guys to do the right thing. Save the city money, hire the position back into a city union-held job. The local would love to speak with you guys. 3 minutes is not enough to go over everything, but we would love to sit down and explain our position, why we feel this is needed to be in-house and not subcontracted out. Thank you.
Thank you, Lacey.
Our next speaker is Greg Bowen.
at last.
Greg Bowen.
Sorry about that. First of all, when the city workers talk, we can't hear hardly you in the back, especially, I apologize, Chad, we can't hear you. So, sorry, anyways, I want to give a thanks out. Eddie, one of our inspectors, their contract, phenomenal guy, works his butt off, very good at what he does. And then another thing, our public works people that are out there, they're great. I mean, I've had dealings with them on numerous occasions. People just call me and, hey, what do I do? They contact them and they get right on it. They get it taken care of. So kudos to them. But we do have people that work for our city that are qualified, have the specs, have everything they need, but they're being looked over. And I'm looking at the numbers here, and I'm not getting it. Maybe we can readdress that and look at some of the people we already have, and instead of paying somebody else, we can also raise them up in our city and give them incentive to do better. I mean, when you have a guy that's sitting there working, but there's no chance for him to succeed, he's always stuck in, he's only gonna do enough just to keep his job because there's no incentive for him to go forth. And in the private sector, I've seen it time and time again in the construction field where if you're hiring somebody from out and people below you is like, well, why not I get that job? Well, you weren't hired. In my opinion, and in my experience, you're hiring somebody else's problem. You have to train them, that you have to bring them in, and the people below them has to train them. And that's kind of belittling to the people that are working for the city, that they have to train a new guy that gets more money. They should come pre-trained. But at the same time, we do have people, and why don't we just start working on getting those people trained and get the certs they need, and so we can give them, promote them going up the ladder and keep them happy. I mean, you look at people and you say, well, why is he just barely doing enough? Because there's no incentive to go up and take the next level, because there is no next level. And I don't want to hit on it too hard. I observed that in the last couple months, and I was like, I had to say something. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, Greg.
No further public comment?
Closing public comments, bringing it back to council for discussion. Floor is open. Robin? Catherine?
Sure. Right now, we don't have a building inspector, so we do need to continue our contract so that we have services. But I think, it's been a while since we have opened the position, that we should open the position, fly it, and see if we receive any qualified applicants and go from there.
Greg?
Well, just give Mr. Bowen a hard time. I've never known a construction employee that comes pre-trained, as you mentioned. So anyways, when we talk about like our building inspector, that yes, we have an in-house building inspector, but the magnitude of some of the work that's going on, we also subcontract out our inspection services to Willdan on the building side. And it seems to work pretty well. And so I think the same on the public works side, that it would put us in a winning position if we did find a qualified inspector, okay? And I don't have any objection to that. But at the same time, we also have to keep the volume of work moving along, and we need an outside consultant or an outside service to backfill on that. So to me, both of them go hand in hand. I think as we've discussed, my recommendation would be to open up that position. If there's qualified help, And, you know, with the proper experience, proper certifications, and, you know, the right fit for the city, then that's something we look at. But we have to keep moving forward, and that's why we also need this backup with an outside firm. Just as a sidebar, I know Robin will appreciate this, that watching on Mike Rowe and his comments, that the change with society for every 10 construction jobs that either retire or get out of the business, there's only 3 to fill those positions. So finding inspectors are tough. Finding qualified trades people is going to be tough. It's getting tougher, and till that whole societal change happens. So that's kind of where I'm sitting with that right now.
Berwin?
Thank you. I agree with what Mr. Newton said here about having a contract agency there to help backfill the load if we had our own inspector, and I believe we'd be all right having our own inspector. But if he's off, gets injured or something like that, then we'd have somebody to back him up, take his place, and keep the work going, because we have a lot of grumbling in town anyway about how slow the city is on getting inspections and permits and stuff like that. But I just think what Greg said makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Robin?
Yeah, I don't have any concern over opening the position and looking for a qualified applicant. It goes to what Councilmember Newton said, though. Sometimes the folks just aren't available or qualified or a good fit. So, you know, I guess open until filled by an appropriate and qualified person would be fine. And then the only other thing I would say is that, you know, with any organization that's new or starting up, just make sure that you're reading everything and familiar with what's in existing documents as you're making asks for things. So that's all I have.
Do we have a motion we'd like to make, or?
Yes. I'll move to approve the contract and to open, have HR open a position for an in-house building inspector.
Just to clarify for council, that's not a problem. I mean, we can easily go out and try to see if we can fill a position. And if we found a candidate, it'll take about 3 to 4 months to go through the process, talking with HR already, to maybe get, if we were able to successfully get a candidate. And then at that point, we would just reduce the number of contract services we'd have back down to 1, because we only have approved budget for 1 as it is, so we need another contract service to continue that. So it's not an issue for us as far as to try to do that again.
So you've modified the motion as it stands?
I did.
Stated.
So the motion is to approve and award the contract and request staff to open
the position for in-house.
yes. At which point, if we hire someone, we will adjust that amount.
Okay. Do I have a second? Second, Robin. Please vote. Motion passes unanimous.
Moving on to 6B, discuss Norco Municipal Code Chapter 18.37, quote, signs, unquote, Section 18.37.08 regarding political signs. Clerk Roa.
you, sir. At the August 21st meeting, Councilmember Hannah had requested that we bring back the municipal code related to signs and specifically political signs, discussion on when political signs can be displayed for elections. Currently, our municipal code does not address when they can be put up. It just addresses that they must be taken down within 10 days following the election. Some cities are the same as us. They don't speak to it. Some are very strict. What seems to be the best practice has been 90 days prior to the date of election, which coincides with our nomination period. That has been the best practice. So it would be the election period and then 10 days following would be where signs can be placed. And the nomination period, like this year, was ended August 14th. I know in the past, Norco has had kind of a self-governing of September 5th or Labor Day as when signs could be started. There has been nothing in writing to address that. So here we are today to see what you guys want to do. Thank you.
Berwin, I think this is your.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I think we should put some kind of a limit on there because some of these signs have been up almost 30 days. I'm not talking about council signs. I'm talking about area representatives, whatever. And I feel that signs, and I've had mine up 3 or 4 different times when I ran for council, but I never did put them up before Labor Day. I think that signs ugly up a town. It's like driving into a town with a bunch of empty car lots. It's ugly. But I think, I know everybody wants their signs up for the Labor Day parade, which is fine. But I think we should put a time limit on there, like maybe September the 1st. And that way they'd have their 90 days, 60-something days on it. But going down these street corners, these lots with the big fences and everything, they're covered. And I just think it just makes the town look bad and everything. And like I said, it's not necessarily our own candidates, it's outside candidates that start real early and putting them up.
Greg?
Well, I'm somewhat in agreement with Berwin that I was always taught it was Labor Day. Labor Day weekend is when we started, at least campaigning locally. More and more, it just seems like it's gotten out of hand. And to me, I don't care what political party. I know some of this is in our right away where, candidates will hire out companies and they're putting signs up on light poles and just anywhere where they can splatter it. And I'd like to see us just, if they're before, let's say September 1st, or whatever date we choose, I don't even feel to notify them. I think we just tear them all down. Go look at that lot at 6th and Sierra, and darn well that those folks probably didn't give permission. It's just covered with all different signs that you can't read anything. And to me, it just looks like a dog pissing on a fire hydrant. Here's my sign, and it's clutter. It's ugly. So I'd like to see a date certain where it starts. Anything before that, tear them all down.
Catherine?
Yes, so under the First Amendment, all signs have to be treated equally. You can't single out political speech. And restricting any sort of sign on private property, we have to have a compelling public interest to do so, and all signs and flags and what have to be treated equally. So certainly in the public right-of-way, which I don't believe I've seen any signs in the public right-of-way in Norco, what cities have done, our neighboring city, South Norco, aka Corona, they have banned all signs in the public space. That also means that then realtors or businesses cannot put their signs out for an open house, for example, on the corner. They are not allowed to do that. I believe Eastville limits signs in the public space just to weekends. But it's gone all the way to the Supreme Court several times in several places. You can't limit a time frame for political signs. You can't specifically limit one type of sign because of the First Amendment and freedom of speech. So anything that we do needs to be tailored to all signs, and it's different for public property versus private property.
Robin?
I'm a little conflicted on this one. It does seem to me like the political season starts earlier and earlier than it used to. And, you know, I don't know if that's a factor of social media or just media in general, and people trying to get their name out in front of folks. And, you know, at the end of the day, I don't know how much signs matter, you know, especially the ones in our public spaces. So I'm interested to hear what kind of ideas or resolutions. I think I've heard a couple, like September 1st. And again, I would have a question for Colin if that's enforceable with what Catherine has said. I have noticed Eastvale's practice where the signs go out on weekends and then they get picked up. That would be incredibly exhausting. I don't think I'm interested in that whatsoever. And I'm not gonna lie, the Corona one, I'm not really opposed to, because even if you look, you know, if you're driving around on the weekends, all the open house signs everywhere. Sometimes they're in the trail, sometimes they are not. They're where they're supposed to be. But I'm not opposed to no signs in public spaces. So I would be interested to hear what my colleagues have to say.
Public comments?
Yes, we have one speaker card, Bonnie Slager.
Hi, Bonnie.
Hi, good evening again. Because of where I live and I have commercial places next to me, some of my commercial neighbors get very unhappy about signs being put up without permission being asked. And then they take them down because permission was not asked. And so I don't know if something like that should be in the sign ordinance, or to me it's common sense. If somebody's going to put a sign on my fence, I would hope they would ask me. So the biggest complaint I hear is the commercial business around me getting signs stuck up on their fences without permission being asked. Thank you.
Thank you.
No further speakers.
So for me, it's got that pesky document called the Constitution, which really gets in the way, I guess. And we just sort of trample all over it all the time. I know that when I've put up signs, for me, it's generally speaking, it is that I do it when I can. And one of the things I don't have control over is when residents who have saved my signs put the signs up. One of the things that's bothered me, for example, Sierra and 6th, I always got permission to put my signs there, and I'm the only one. I think maybe Greg did, but I know that person well, and I always got permission, and I was the only one. But other signs go up there, and they finally kind of went, well, we don't want them to do something to the property or whatever. In terms of the real estate, you know, so we're gonna
kill another small business. You know, these people are just trying to make a living. And I know that signs are in the way, but, you know, right now retail's dying. Where every city in the state is scrambling to make money. We're trying to find ways to generate money. People are trying to make a living. And, you know, and the state, truthfully, has become uninvestable. You can't invest in this state. And so they're trying to invest in the state. They're trying to do the impossible in a market where, you know, interest payments are huge. So I would not want, we already have a code in place. They're not supposed to put stuff on, you know, telephone poles and stuff like that, but they're just trying to make a living. And one of the things we have to remember is all the money comes from the private sector. All of it. It doesn't come from the public sector. And so I don't want to do anything that would get in the way of the real estate. In terms of the other thing that bothers me is I see people, it's already a lot, you can't put it on public property. I remember Debbie Pinay used to go after people. I see signs that are put on the storm canals. I see stuff like that. That's not allowed. And I think that just needs to be taken down. I would not want to do September 1st simply because, again, it comes down to a time issue. Maybe August 25th, but even as I say that, I'm not even sure we can legally do that. I mean, I know that nobody has challenged it in Eastvale, but Eastvale is a totally different animal. They have districts. And I think your point, Robin, about social media is absolutely correct. You have one candidate that he will do he'll put out 5 signs and do a social media blitz, and will probably avoid all of the discussions and the debates. And he will get a lot of votes. And so you have to have ways to try to counter that kind of a campaign. It's totally different. When I got on council, social media was just starting. The only thing you had was to knock on doors. So as much as I'm conflicted, I think we kind of, for me, I just think we need to leave it as it is, but I think we need to beef up enforcement for the public lands. And I think we have to make sure that people understand that if you don't have permission to put that sign up someplace, it must be torn down. And I don't know if we can fine them. I don't want to do that, but I think that's kind of where we have to have it. Is it legal? Colin, that's a question. I mean, can we start this, let's say, August 25th, August 20th? Is that a violation of the Constitution?
Depends on what the regulation says. So if it says on August 25th, you can start political signs, that is a problem because that's content-based. You have to read the content of the sign to figure out if the law applies.
So it has to be all signs.
Or what you can do is do it by the time, place, or manner of the sign. So you can say no temporary signs, or temporary signs starting August 25th. At all times of the year, no temporary signs, but August 25th, temporary signs of 2 feet by 3 feet are allowed. Then people can put anything on them. They can put stop the war here, stop the war there, vote for
Okay.
whoever they want. But we can't call out the content of the sign.
Well,
But are you talking about public or private property?
Both.
Like the public right of way?
Both. So for public property, for open public forums, the surfaces of the street, the surfaces of the sidewalk, the surfaces of a park, that law applies. For non-open public forums, the side of the canal, you can have content-based restrictions. That's different. That's not a place that's been open for public communication. For those places open for public communication, we cannot draw content-based restrictions. So that's going to be most of your public areas, not your light poles, not those kinds of things.
So they can't put signs in public areas?
Unless you ban them all.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, you have to ban them all because you can't just ban political ones. And any regulation that you do on a sign for private property has to be done for all signs for anything.
That's correct. Private property has the same rights as a open public forum. No content-based restrictions unless there's a compelling public interest, as Councilmember Allen said.
Yeah. There's other places that have tried to implement, and when they were challenged with timeframes for political speech or political signs, they did not hold up under the First Amendment.
How does Facebook get away with it?
Facebook is not an open public forum. It's private speech. Unless you are a government actor and use your government page for government speech, then it is your personal, official Facebook page. That's different. Whole different set of laws there.
Well, I don't want to put real estate people out of business. That's just, they're struggling enough. Anything else?
Well, I think we need to, at some point, this isn't I don't think a pressing, urgent, emergency matter, but have our ordinance updated so that it's clear, because right now it says they all have to be gone within 10 days, but I don't think that's enforceable. I want to just make sure that our code is clear on what our signs are that are allowed in the different spaces for everybody, and I don't think that's an emergency. I haven't heard anybody calling about that, but.
The 10 days to get your signs down?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess the way
Certainly we should, right? But I'm just, that won't hold up because it's political. So if you say all signs, again, it has to be all, right? It's all or nothing, yeah.
Berwin, Greg, anything? Yeah.
Dana, maybe I didn't quite understand what Catherine was saying. Isn't our ordinance like after the election, 10 days to remove all the signs?
That's on our ordinance, but like Catherine was saying, and also Colin, if it is challenged, it's more than likely not going to hold up. And that's what cities have been. That's why most cities are now taking down even the 90 days. The 90 days was Riverside County had theirs. The Department of Transportation had it at 90 days. But if it's challenged, we would lose that in the court of law. Isn't that right? What you're saying for stating it as political signs, not temporary, because they do have it. Some of the cities say temporary signs.
Right. That's right.
Okay, and then on political signs, we restrict the square footage to 32 square feet?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how does that restriction not interfere with your rights?
Anytime you have to read the content of a sign to figure out if a law applies, the law is content-based. Anytime you see the word political sign, it's going to be difficult to enforce. You have to have a compelling public interest. For open public forums, you can have a law that says no political signs right there. This is not, or in City Hall, where it's not a public, this is actually a limited open public forums where the public comes and speak. But you can have a sign that says, behind the front counter of City Hall, no political signs. That's not an open public forum.
But I could have a larger sign than what we have in our ordinance is 32 square feet?
That's what's in the ordinance currently, under 9 in the section 1837.08.
It would match whatever the regular sign, like whatever sign people can have at their house anyways, it would have to match that. It would have to be equal across the board.
I remember your truck getting stuck with all your plywood signs.
Well, I realized I was a fool because I go out the night if I win or whatever happens.
Those were all
I'm like,
4x8s.
I'm out getting all my signs. So, if you don't get them in within 10 days, you're kind of showing. And that does bother me when you see congressmen and wannabe congressmen, and no offense to anybody, and that their signs are there for months. So anyway, do we have a motion? Do we have anything we want to do here?
I'd like to see us get to a date certain. I did want to comment on the realtors, though. And I think, with some involvement over the years with Tigar, and I think this is where you're coming from, Kevin, most realtors, when they put their signs out, for the weekend, for the open house, the cost of those signs, they don't leave them out. No. They pick them back up. So, that one I don't have much heartburn on. The realtors seem to police themselves fairly well with that. But there's always the rogue one out there. I'd still like, if there's a way to find a date certain to start. You just got ugly. Just go drive around and look, and it just looks like crap.
There's a way to do it.
Okay.
You just have to focus on the temporary nature of the signs. Nobody's going to put in a permanent billboard sign, hopefully, that says, especially on public property. Can't put in a permanent billboard sign on public property without a permit. But political signs are always temporary. So you just say no temporary signs between certain dates. You can have additional temporary signage from September 1 until 20 days after a national election.
Except your problem is it has to apply to everyone.
Right.
And I don't want to interfere with the real estate market with people that are trying to make a living.
Then you can say that every single residential property can have a sign the size of a real estate sign that can have any message except for no off-site commercial advertising. And then any person can put on a real estate sign, they can put on a garage sale sign, or they can put on a vote for Joe sign.
But now we're telling people on their private property how many signs or,
Yes,
and that still doesn't include the public right of way.
correct.
I'd say we make it before you can start September the 1st with the political signs.
Which is not enforceable, correct?
No, if I have to take somebody to court. What I've seen other cities do is they have everybody who's running, request them to voluntarily sign a good neighbor policy, and if they don't, you let everybody know they're not doing the good campaign policy, whatever it is, and then it's voluntary, and that sometimes works for laws that want to target just political signs. I can't enforce that in court, but it's a political process. You can say they're violating, everybody else is following these rules and somebody isn't, and so, they should suffer the scorn of the community.
But the city should be apolitical.
Yep, these are all going right to all of the heart of the First Amendment complications that have been debated since the First Amendment was written.
The government should protect
So
people's
now this
speech.
doesn't count for private property, so if somebody has one of your signs or has an F Biden sign or an F Trump sign, what happens with those? Flags.
Protected by the First Amendment.
If we allow flags, we allow those flags.
Yeah, unless you say no flags.
Yeah,
But
unless you say, yeah, that's right. Unless you say no flags. As a temporary flag, no matter what's on it. McDonald's sign, vote for whoever sign, whatever. Flag is a structure.
All right, is that a motion, Berwin? September 1st, as a good neighbor, maybe restate your motion. Good neighbor, do you got the motion?
Right now you have for, to add into this section 1837.08 to motion is for September 1st when signs can be put up in the city of Norco as a good neighbor. Following. I'm like,
what does that mean, a good neighbor policy?
That's a good question. So I guess staff would have to bring back some kind of a written voluntary document for anybody who wants to pull papers to sign. It really is an unenforceable, voluntary, feel good, follow it or not.
That demonstrates character.
Right. And we could bring back a letter that has a signature on it, and somebody could decide to sign it, they could decide not to sign it.
And if someone's not pulling papers in Norco,
They're not gonna sign it.
because they're pulling papers somewhere else.
That's right. And even if you don't see the sign, who put it there? If you don't see somebody put it in, was it the candidate? Was it somebody who just took their sign and put it out? Was it their committee? This is the same thing we run into with every sign. That's part of if we don't want to make it a enforceable law, which is usually enforceable only against the property owner unless we saw a person place a sign, in which case we go just to structure and no content. Then the voluntary nature of this thing is it's basically just kind of a feel good, wave it out there, say, Johnny's got all his signs out, he's not following his pledge.
If Johnny signed the pledge because it's voluntary.
Right.
it's just like the campaign fair practices that you sign when you pull papers with me. We have the that you all have signed, but like the Register of Voters, the government code, and the FPPC, the Secretary of State, you don't have to sign it. You could still be a terrible candidate to your running candidates, but it's their good policy, kind of good neighbor policy that they have for fair campaign practices that, cities do have part of pulling papers to voluntarily sign. So it's kind of the same policy.
If we can add an addendum to that, sounds like the perfect document to add it to.
Mhm.
Page 2. I agree to take my signs down 10 days after the election.
Why not craft it that way, under fair practices? No.
So we have a motion on the floor, but no second. Do we want to amend that motion? Do we have a second?
What? I'm good with like September 1st, but I'm trying to think of like the suggestion, the fair practices, right? I don't know quite how to craft that. That, just like Dana was
Yeah,
saying.
the fair campaign
There's-
practices.
Here's the suggestions, right?
And I'll just say the Constitution explicitly protects political speech. It's one of the forms of speech that is very protected. So I'm not going to vote in favor of restricting it any further. If we want to change our sign ordinance to go across the board, I'm in favor of whatever the majority of the council does. I understand the concern with our businesses. Certainly don't want to do anything to harm businesses, and I don't want to limit people's speech on their private property.
So it appears that that motion dies for lack of a second. Do we have another motion?
Do we need to bring it back?
So how do I call this, Dana? Doesn't look like there's another motion.
Do we need a consensus to, at some point when staff workload allows, to look at our sign ordinance and make sure that it's all in order?
It could be an item for future consideration.
Okay, thank you.
So Colin, since there is no consensus, it just dies at this point, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Dead. Moving on. All right. 7. City staff have anything to share? Anyone? No. City attorney,
No, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
interim city manager, Lisette. How are you enjoying your first few days? Yeah, yeah, good. Berwin? Greg?
Thanking all the volunteers and staff for the Norco Fair. I saw some staff and some volunteers, and it was really exciting for me as a resident to ride in my very first parade, and it was the horse that I rode on his first parade. So, seeing there's people that come from all over just to get a chance to ride in our parade. It's a really special thing that we have, and so just grateful for everyone who made that happen.
Robin?
Yes, I would echo that. Thousands of hours of work put into the Norco Fair and to the rodeo. Both events were amazing. The support in this town is really unmatched, in my opinion. The sale on Sunday, I was talking to Kevin about it, for our livestock exhibitors, far exceeded any dollar amount we've ever had at that sale. And so I'm just super, super proud of our community and how they come out to support agriculture and our young people. So thank you to everybody that had anything to do with the fair and the rodeo.
And I have nothing, but I want to close the meeting on a couple of very down notes. First off, I want to close the meeting in honor of Dallas policeman Darren Burks, who was executed by a criminal. And I also want to close in remembrance of the children and the adults killed today at the school site. A moment of silence.